A very good morning to all of you. Welcome to today's news analysis. We are doing the Indian Express papers, Chandigarh edition. Now you can see all the topics that have been mentioned that we will be covering. So let me tell you the most important. So one is the special session of the parliament that has been called for. GDP data has been released. So that has been analyzed on the front page, on the editorial page, as well as on the economy section. Now we have an AIM study which tells us about the concerns about the implementation of the Ayushman Bharat. Okay. From the editorial section, again GDP thing is explained, but there is one article telling us about the poor air quality and its impact. So here we are getting some facts which you can quote in your answer writing. So air quality is environment and how we have to maintain it. Then we can also always talk about the reasons for the declining air quality and what steps need to be taken. Okay, and today is also the Sanskrit day. Why we celebrate it, we should know, especially from point of view. And there is this Kakra per nuclear plant, which is indigenously developed by India, largest nuclear plant indigenously developed, has been launched recently. Now coming to the news on the front page. So we have a news concerning Jammu and Kashmir. So Jammu and Kashmir, was in under article, it was a proper state. Then this was made a union territory of Jammu and Kashmir with legislature like Delhi and union territory of Ladakh without legislature. So, the thing is that with legislature, they have announced, this was in 2019, end of 2019, but till now, till 4 years, no elections have taken place. So this has been challenged in the Supreme Court and center is responding to this. They're saying that we can conduct polls anytime, no issues. But then why are you not conducting it? That is the big question. So that is one thing. So this reply has come from the Solicitor General. By the way, let me tell you, Solicitor General is not a constitutional post. It is not mentioned in the Constitution. The second question that was posed to the Solicitor General or the person representing the center was, when will you grant statehood, complete statehood to the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir with legislature? He says, we will do it. We don't know when. So this arrangement of making it a union territory is only a temporary arrangement. Now moving to the next news, government calls for a 5-day special session of parliament later this month, September end, but does not tell us as to what is the agenda of this session. Why call this session? So maybe the elections are being preponed, that may be there. Maybe the government wants to bring in big bills like simultaneous elections or the women reservation bill, maybe that is on agenda. Lok Sabha elections are going to come up, state elections to number of states, maybe they can be clubbed together. So that may be on the thought process. Or maybe it is to test. It is a test balloon for polls. They want to see how the atmosphere is like just before the polls. Okay. Then you can see the GDP data has been mentioned. So the real GDP is at 7.8%. When we use the term real, it's mentioned over here, real GDP. It means GDP which is correcting for inflation. So, GDP may increase even if the prices increase. So offsetting the increase in price or offsetting inflation is real GDP. So real GDP is more accurate representation. This is at 7.8%. Now of this, the main contributor is the services sector, which is around 10.55%. While manufacturing sector has not grown and at the same pace, it is at somewhere 5.3, 5.5%. Fine. So service sector is giving the boost to the GDP. Manufacturing sector is not keeping pace with the national GDP figures. Now, why is this happening? this is a matter of concern as to why it is lower than the national GDP numbers. Because we want manufacturing sector to grow, we want more employment, more non-farm jobs. So this is a worrisome sign. Same briefly has been mentioned in the editorial section as well. Haryana government has issued an advertisement. This is concerning the Ayushman Bharat. Okay, Ayushman Bharat twice we'll cover, so I'll discuss the features then. Now, in Haryana, it is also known as the Chirayu Yojana. Chirayu in Haryana, or anywhere actually in Sanskrit, it means immortal. Okay, so good health. Now, this article is a no, not this one. One second. Yes, this article. This is concerning the panchayats. Panchayats, so this will obviously be covered in the local news itself. So this is a local news, but it is an important topic. Because from here we can infer the issues with the functioning of the Panchayati Raj institutions. Very important theme for your governance section or the GS2 paper. So let me tell you what happened. Then briefly some overview about the issues with the panchayats. Okay. So you see, panchayat elections take place every 5 years. Like state assembly elections, Lok Sabha elections, this also every 5 years. So 5 months before the completion of 5 years, Punjab government said that we end the panchayats for the time being. Disband it. So 5 months before this. Why? Because they feel the sarpanches that have been elected, they are dishonest. The funds that have been allocated by the state to the various panchayats, they are being mismanaged. They are not being efficiently spent. So therefore, those panchayats were dissolute. Dissolution took place. Now the sarpanches challenged their decision and they went to the High Court, Punjab and Haryana High Court. So just, obviously this wouldn't have gone well in the courts. So the Punjab government took a U-turn and they cancelled their order on panchayat dissolution. Now the sarpanches are obviously saying as to, you don't trust us, how can your MLAs be trusted? MLAs at the state level. Fine. Now, can you see the underlying issue over here? The lack of trust the state government has, or the state has on the local bodies, the panchayati institutions. So when there is a lack of trust between the state and the PIs, obviously the state will not like to allocate more powers, or let me use the term functions, to the panchayats. They will not like to provide them with adequate financial avenues, be it in terms of grants, money to run the panchayats, because they do not trust them. They say, we will run the government, we will take matters in our own hands. So we don't want this panchayats to be engaged. Right? So, and then again, to run the government, it is not just grants. I mean, money is not just coming from the grants, but panchayats should also have powers to raise money through taxes, through fines, through tolls, right? But these revenues are actually reserved with the state governments. This is true for almost all the states. Functions, finances, okay. Lastly, to run the government, you need functionaries. Now, functionaries, first of all, you should have money to pay them salaries. You should have them trained. Adequate numbers should be there. Then only things will function well. So what we see is, because of this mistrust, the 3 F's, functions, functionaries, finances, are compromised. In fact, there are 4 F's actually. The first F is framework. So framework, functions, functionaries, and finances. Framework is the basic arrangement that the Constitution has provided for in the Article 243 or 11th and 12th schedule of the Constitution. 11th is for the rural, A 12th schedule is for the urban. So I feel that when you are analyzing, you can just convert your answer into these 4Fs and elaborate it. Your answer will be fine. This I have referred to the Yojana magazine. Now coming to the implementation of the Ayushman Bharat. So let me tell you what is Ayushman Bharat briefly, then the study that was conducted, and then the shortcomings. Okay. So Ayushman Bharat is a flagship scheme of the government for healthcare sector. And in Ayushman Bharat, there is a particular scheme known as Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, which provides an annual health cover of rupees 5 lakh per family for secondary and tertiary care hospitalization to 12 crore poor and vulnerable families, which constitutes 40% of Indian population. Fine, you have the important facts over here. Okay, the main idea is that out-of-pocket expenditures and plus hospitalization, cashless treatment can be done. This is not a rights-based approach, but this is an entitlement-based approach. You can see from the website itself, there it is mentioned. Now, coming to the issues. Now, obviously, this scheme is like a cashless scheme, right? The people do not have to make payments if they are admitted in the hospital for this major health issues. But there are certain issues that have been flagged. So we have a study that was conducted by AIIMS Delhi. Okay, so central institution. So there itself, there are a number of issues. So they conducted a study, they had like 19,000 people under the scheme since its inception in 2018. And some major flaws had come up. So it is noted that, for example, procedure for implants, it is more than what the package estimates. The health packages are there, so it is more than the money that is being compensated by Ayushman Bharat. Then, now imagine you are hospitalized for any surgical procedure and you will be provided medicines. Now, many of the medicines that are there, they have to be separately bought. So they are not easily available. These are not stocked by the hospital. So the people have to go to the pharmacies and buy it. These are again not compensated for. So this is a problem. Then there are like health medical tests, checkups take place. There are many tests for which exceptional approval is required. The idea may be that misuse does not take place. Unnecessary tests are not prescribed, but exceptional approval is required, because of which the patients are denied, or they have to bear the extra cost of these tests, etc. And these are emergency situations. When somebody is hospitalized, exceptional approval will take time also. We cannot wait. Patient cannot wait at that point of time. Besides 1, 2, 3 mentioned, now 4 and 5. There are delays due to procedural issues, such as requests for unspecified procedures by AIIMS doctors. So doctors prescribe a procedure, medical procedure that has to be done, but it is not mentioned in the Ayushman Bharat or not updated in Ayushman Bharat scheme. Besides, there are Arogya Mitras. There are people who facilitate the implementation of the scheme. So there is lack of access to medical records and test reports by the Arogya Mitra, which leads to delay in submission of claims. In fact, there was another study from Safdarjung Hospital. Safdarjung Hospital is right opposite AIIMS actually, in reality, in Delhi. So it was showed that Arogya Mitras many times they're not keen on implementing of the Ayushman Bharat, which leads to delays. Delay in submission of claims and follow-ups with the scheme. Okay, so these are the overall issues. Okay. Largest indigenously developed nuclear plant unit in Gujarat starts operation at full capacity. Where is it? Kakrapar in Gujarat. Right, so this is it. And here there is a mention that, when it is operating at full capacity, it is said that it has achieved the stage of criticality. First achieved its first criticality. Criticality means the stage of controlled but sustained nuclear fission reaction. Nuclear plants work on the system of nuclear fission, so splitting of the atoms. Okay, today morning on Telegram, I shared you a link about the payloads of the Chandrayaan 3. Same has been explained, but you get much better representation on this website link that I have shared with you. Right, so you may study this individually, one by one. The link is there on that Telegram channel. You can go on ISRO Chandrayaan 3, that is also possible. Right, so payload and everything is covered. Same thing is mentioned in this article. Now, talking about the payload, there is another payload for Aditya L1. Aditya L1 is, I think tomorrow they will launch it, September 2nd. Okay. So the payload that is in question is SUIT, Solar Ultraviolet Imaging Telescope. So this will obviously measure the atmosphere of the sun, so photosphere, chromosphere, so that will be observed. The chromosphere is the region just above photosphere. The temperature is more or less same. So chromosphere temperature is 3700 to 6200 degrees Celsius. While for photosphere, it is 3700 to 7700 degrees Celsius. India bloc meeting taking place. China yet to confirm if Xi Jinping will attend G20 meeting in India. PM tweets in Sanskrit. Why? It is the World Sanskrit Day, and it says its followers should also try to, Twitter users should also try to write one sentence on Sanskrit. Now, why are we celebrating the World Sanskrit Day? So this is 31st August, the date has been mentioned. Okay, so why is it so? So the World Sanskrit Day was celebrated first in 1969. This marks the last Purnima, the full moon of the Hindu calendar month of Shravan. So Shravan month, the monsoon month, Savan Mahina. So the last full moon of this month is the World Sanskrit Day. It is to create awareness about this language, of course. Okay, so editorial and opinion page. So I am more interested, I'm not really sure about this article from exam point of view. It's political, but I'll try this. Okay, let me try this. Then we will come to the GDP thing, which I have actually explained previously. Then we have the poor declining air quality. We have facts and some remedies. Right, so that is there. Then there is something about parliament, effectiveness of parliament. So that you can see the video. A lot of things are covered in that itself. Okay. So we the decolonialists. Okay. You know why I'm confused? One is it's political. So that way it's like I don't want to do it. But then from GS1 point of view society, what are the trends going on? Who knows if it is picked up by UPSC? It's actually a trend that we are trying to focus on. Right. Okay. So recent times there is a trend that we should move away from the colonial practices. The British were ruling over us, so we are affected by the colonial mindset. So we should shed away that from the shadow of the colonial mindset. Recently, we heard this statement from Mr. Amit Shah, the Home Minister, when he reformed the criminal law, the CRPC and the Indian Evidence Act. So especially this IPC, Indian Penal Code, or the criminal law, was framed. It was a colonial legacy. It was framed during the time of Macaulay. So now they're saying that we are focusing on the Indianness on the law. Now, that is one side of things. Similarly, we can say the use of English is being criticized. We should move towards Hindi and Sanskrit. So use of language, English language is a colonial language. So preference for vernaculars and Sanskrit Hindi. So that can be seen. Likewise, they're saying that Indian history has been distorted by the West, which is true actually. Indian history has been distorted, and so focusing more on Indology, the past that has to be done should be history should be reconsidered. So that again is being emphasized upon. Right, so there are various ways of looking at things. Likewise, Indian knowledge was great. So why not reinvest in that and study it? Now, the political statement was that politically they are seeing Islam and Christianity as colonial projects. Islam is a foreign religion, came from the outside. Christianity also, we should shed away that also. So that is something that I was not comfortable with, this viewpoint. It's political, but from exam point of view, I don't want you to use it. Okay. Now, we see that colonial mindset is responsible for the backwardness, but then this does not address why were we behind during the medieval times, modern times, also early modern. Why were we weak? Why were there social injustices, caste issue, and everything? So, caste, gender related issues. We were an intellectually we were doing very, very well. We belong to the land of Aryabhat. So many works are there, Navratans, so much in music. But why did we go behind? Healthcare also, but why did we go behind? Why did other countries proceed forward? It was basically the social issues, but so there must be some issues within our society. We should introspect that also. So that has been emphasized upon. Okay, moving on, optimism and caution. So the same thing, the real GDP growth is at 7.8%. It is healthy, but the services is 10.3 and manufacturing is 5.5. We really want manufacturing sector growth should increase because this has potential to increase employability, or we can say has potential to create job-led growth. So the focus should be on promoting this. Now, interestingly, the manufacturing growth rate is declining at a time when the commodity prices are low. So manufacturers, obviously, they process inputs and give you the finished goods. So if the low commodity prices, their profitability should be more. So more focus should be on manufacturing. So why is it that it is declining? And this is at a time when there is a good demand. Services sector is doing good. Even tourism sector, etc., they did well in the same quarter. So people are willing to spend more, but manufacturing sector is doing less. Okay, the toll of the air. So first of all, obviously the air quality has been declining from the last decade in particular. We are focusing that yes, this is bad. We have this air quality index that has been released. Then Delhi special measures have been taken every pre-winters, so that pollution problem can be addressed. So here we have certain facts now. So it is a recent study from Chicago University says that declining air quality can lead to cancer, various forms of cancer, cognitive disorders, and stunted development in children. Stunted means reduced height. Okay. Then there is a Lancet study which says that India lost 1.67 million people, or 16,70,000 people in 2019 due to diseases caused by inhaling hazardous amounts of PM 2.5. Besides, there is one more fact which says that economic losses attributed to deaths and morbidity in 2019 were nearly $37 billion. So loss of life plus the economic value, you get the facts. Okay. And yes, one more. For the capital of NCR region, their lifespan is reduced by nearly 12 years because of pollution. Okay. Now, this is first, we get the facts. Now, what are the reasons for pollution? Obviously, emissions. So that is there. Second, emissions, vehicular, cement, dust, construction dust, Right? So a lot of things are there. Besides, the issue of pollution is more pronounced during the winter months in northern India. In fact, most of the polluted cities are actually in the northern part of India. Why so? Because during the winter months, because of this Himalayas and the cold season, there is a temperature inversion which takes place. Or in other words, we can say there is a blanket, there is an airlock that is created which does not allow the air to get exchanged. So the pollutants that are created, they remain in this atmosphere only. So that is the problem. But in non-winter months, we do not see this problem. So you can see the smog issue that is there. Smog does not escape. Anybody burns something, fire or burns a tire, that pollution will affect the entire society for a considerable amount of time. Summers, it doesn't matter. Okay, so that is there. Now moving on. Now what we see is, when it comes to the issue of pollution, we do not look at it from the point of view of healthcare. That is, what is the impact on the quality of life of the people, and the impact on the health. Besides, the emphasis is on punitive measures, giving punishments, polluter pays principle, etc. Now we need to do more about it. More needs to be done. So here only re-engineering transportation plans are mentioned. So we can call it transit-oriented development. So that is, development should be catered around transit, travel, public infrastructure, public transportation should be promoted. The way urbanization is designed, it should promote public transport, right? That infrastructure should be there. It should be efficient, effective. So this will help reduce pollution. Link with health crisis, it's what I mentioned previously. We can focus on e-mobility, so pollution in the urban areas will come down as a result. Dust management has to be done. Dusting, construction is there, so a sheet should be put on those sites so that the dust does not spread. Stubble burning should be managed. So these are certain things that can be done. Now coming to the international section. After India, now Philippines, Malaysia, and Taiwan reject China's latest map. So China keeps issuing maps, and more of territory of China, China keeps extending its territory. India, of course, declined it because parts of Aksai Chin and Arunachal Pradesh were in China's map. Now, what are the problems with Philippines, Malaysia, and Taiwan? So you can see, imagine this is China. This is China in East Asia. This is the Asian nations, island nations spread, right? China has this concept of 9-dash line. 9-dash line. They claim that this 9-dash line belongs to China. So this territory of South China Sea belongs to China, and which implies the exclusive economic zone associated with it also belongs to China. So the countries in the corresponding region, the Asian region, be it Malaysia, Vietnam, Philippines, all of them have a problem with that. So they decline this map. Fine, simple. Okay, so what is the 9-dash line? This is the 9-dash line that I just explained. Iran accuses Israel of trying to sabotage its missile program. I wanted to know the name actually of the missile program, which I didn't get. And I was in general curious as to how can Israel sabotage Iran's missile program. Not nuclear, only missile program. So they say that Mossad, it's Israel's secret agency, they are supplying Iran with low price connectors, right? Low price, poor quality equipments, so that the missiles fail when actually used. Important news: Japan seeks 12% increase in defense budget amid concerns with China and North Korea threat. So they want to spend more on defense. Australia schools lead revival of fading indigenous languages. Okay. So you see, Australia now been associated with English and very European-like culture, but it had various indigenous and aboriginal tribes, local people over there. So the Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander communities. So they used to be there. But when these people came, the English people came sometime in 1779, they colonized this island of Australia. They took over their culture. They declined. They deprived the local people of their territories. Right. So that happened because of this, and so much so that even slavery used to be there. They took away the children of their traditional people, and as a result of this, it is said that in the mid 19th century to 1970s, mid 19th century would be 1850s to 1970, about 100 years, this generation has been lost. So this is a lost generation. And because of this, the language spoken, etc., that culture has been endangered. So now they want to revive that indigenous language, indigenous culture again. So that awareness is there that we have done some wrong. It has to be corrected. Now we come to the economy section. So yes, so this we have been covering from some time now, since yesterday actually. As 40 firms apply, yesterday it was 38 firms. As 40 firms apply, how will production linked incentive scheme for IT hardware pan out this time? Not mentioned how it will pan out this time, not mentioned. Okay. So 38 companies are there for IT hardware. So let me again tell you what is the production linked incentive scheme. Imagine this is the government. Government says that we will give you a subsidy in the form of production linked incentive scheme. Then this what happens is, it says that there are various companies. I'm drawing the companies. So you have to register with the government for the PLI. Government processes the data and says only a few are eligible. Certain companies are eligible for the production linked incentive scheme. So not everybody would be eligible. Only a few are eligible based on application. Now these companies will manufacture and obviously sell their laptops or hardware. It could be for anything, right? Okay, so they all will sell. So based on the incremental sale, these companies would be getting the subsidy. And the subsidy amount is very clear. It is 17,000 crores and it is on the sales. Although we call it production linked, it is only when the sale actually takes place, it's then that the government gives subsidy. So at the moment, the upfront subsidy on the sale is about 5%. So it was mentioned somewhere. Yes. Yes. The average average incentive over 6 years will be around 5% of net incremental sales. Now GDP data has been out, right? Again, back to GDP thing. So GDP also comprises of core sector. Key infrastructure is known as the core sector, and it accounts for 40.27% of the index of industrial production. We call it as key infra or core sector because it is the backbone, because the other sectors of the economy are dependent on it. For example, iron and steel. So iron and steel is a core sector. Automobile sector is dependent on it. Right? So many other sectors are dependent on it. Likewise, electricity, fertilizers. Okay, so they are doing well. They're growing at 8%. Only manufacturing thing is at lower, this thing, 5.5%. India to clock GDP growth in fiscal year 24, it will be at 6.5%, says Chief Economic Advisor Anant Nageshwar. Is raised concern about rising crude prices, geopolitical uncertainty, and tighter financial conditions because of inflation and RBI's continued monetary tightening. Next is fiscal deficit. Fiscal deficit is basically the difference between expenses and revenues of the government. So this is a third of annual target in Q1. Now, what draws my attention is we get these facts concerning these terms that you can see: net tax receipts, non-tax revenue, non-debt, capital receipts. So let me explain this. Net tax receipts. So tax receipts means money that is going to the government, right? Money through taxes. So net tax receipt means money that is going to the government in the form of taxes and money that has been claimed. For example, I file ITR and I say that you were deducted 10% TDS. So this has to be returned back to me because my tax obligation is not so much. So the government will reimburse that amount. So net tax receipts. So it is at minus 13%. It was minus 13%. Now it is 11. In fiscal year 2024, it's 11. Okay. Non-tax revenue. So government generating revenue outside of taxes. Where it is non-tax. Yeah. So for example, government operates a toll. So money coming from tolls, or a government levies a charge on a fine or something, that is also non-tax revenue. Here there is an example given that non-tax revenue has increased because of RBI dividend. So dolls, dividends, etc. are sources of non-tax revenue. Then non-debt capital receipts. So one is debt. For example, government has given a loan and on that money is getting back to the government. So that is one thing. Non-debt would be non-debt. So it will be share of equity or disinvestment. So from there, the money that is coming. Then capital expenditure is here, capital expenditure and revenue expenditure. Okay. So, moving on, now we are onto the explained section. Again, the issue with the West Africa. Now we have coup in Gabon. So I keep telling you, you should know the countries in West Africa in clockwise and anti-clockwise order, because UPSC will not be giving you image. So the only way to ask is clockwise and anti-clockwise, or it can also be east, west, west, east. But clockwise is better approach because you can easily see we can draw a clock over here, or we can have a circular motion. Now, all these Gabon, Niger, Burkina Faso, Guinea, all of them had a coup in the recent years. Now, coming to BRICS, a bigger BRICS, better too. So, BRICS had 5 countries. Now it has 11 countries. And now more countries want to be part of BRICS, about 40 countries. So, is it good or is it bad? So, how is it? So initially in this article only tells us about the origin of the BRICS, right? We'll go over the sequence. So the BRICS is an important bloc, especially from trade point of view. It comprises of 41% of global population, 24% of global GDP, and 16% of global trade. This term BRICS was conceptualized by Goldman Sachs in 2001. In 2009, in Yekaterinburg, Russia. So in Russia summit, it was the first BRICS summit: Brazil, Russia, India, China. In 2011, 2 years later, in the Sanya summit of China, South Africa was included again, added. So it becomes BRICS. Then come 2023, we have Johannesburg Declaration, in which 6 other members were added, making it 11 members. It has countries from Africa, Latin America, countries from Asia. Okay. Now, comparative advantages of the countries that have been added. So we have Egypt. Egypt has been added. It that it is controlling the strategic Suez Canal, and 12% of the global trade passes through it. So Egypt is a BRICS member. And then Yes. So Egypt has been added. Argentina provides access to the Latin nations. Brazil objected to it, but Brazil opposed, was reluctant on adding Argentina because it is a rival neighboring country. Argentina was added. Then we have Ethiopia, which has been added, and Asia. In Asia, we have the West Asian countries of Saudi Arabia, UAE, which are capital rich, so they can help provide funding for the new development block. Whereas Tehran can provide, it's because of its geography, it can provide us, it can be part of the north-south connectivity project, the Chabahar project, etc. So north-south connectivity project. So in that sense, it is important. Now, the common point amongst all these countries are they are heavily dependent on China. Heavily dependent. Both Argentina and China, Argentina and Egypt have strong economic dependency with China. Argentina was on the verge of bankruptcy. Beijing provided it support of $3 billion. So they are dependent on China. Likewise for Ethiopia, likewise for Egypt. So all these countries, Iran also. Now, this is of concern for India. Although the BRICS is expanding, more political clout will be added to it. But at the same time, China, which has rivalry with the US, or we can say Sino-US rivalry is there. So China may try to pose BRICS as an anti-West, anti-US alliance, which does not bode well for India. So that is one issue. India has to try its India has to try to ensure that this does not take place, which is actually difficult. So that is one. Second is India's own significance in BRICS will come down because of all these countries being strongly dependent on China, India-China relations not being good. So this is again a matter of concern. Okay, last point over here. What would be the name? So most likely they'll continue with BRICS because BRICS itself is a brand name. So they may not change the name because with so many countries, probably an alternative name may have been appropriate, but they're saying it is not required. Last news, Kok Borok, Tripura's language without a script. So this is their news. You can see protest in Agartala. Right, some agitation is going on. So what happened was, this is a language which is spoken by 19 tribal communities. Later in 1979, it was given the status of an official state language in Tripura. Fine. So far, so good. Okay. Now the problem with this is it does not have a script. Traditionally, the language has been converted into Bengali script or Roman script. Now, recently, Tripura Board of Secondary Education, State Education Board, they were to take an exam, and they said that the paper concerning this language, Kokoborok paper, should be given in Bengali script. But there were people who studied in English, the Roman script, so they were not able to write it. So with this, opposition party and the ruling party are clashing. Fine, so that is the issue. Now they're saying, the CM is saying that we can have this converted into any script, any script of any language, so that can be